Hi guys, it's Jin, and today I'm going to react to a video made by one of my favorite YouTubers. He's British and now he's living in Japan, and this video is about 12 things that you shouldn't do in Japan. And I don't know, I think this video is really famous and already have been reacted by many people, so I don't know if it's fun to make it in this time. I don't know if you're gonna enjoy it, but I've always wanted to make this kind of video. So today, here I am. I'm gonna try it. So let's get started.
A whole lot about Japan before I got here. I knew what Pikachu was, and I'd seen The Last Samurai about 3 times, and that was probably the extent of my knowledge. I actually did most of my reading about Japanese etiquette on the horrific 12-hour flight between London and Tokyo, and I've pretty much just winged it ever since. In hindsight, there are a lot of things I know now that I would have done well to comprehend before I got here. So today, I've taken 5 years of experience in the field and compiled it into this list of 12 things not to do in Japan. So when you're on your flight here, you needn't worry about reading about cultural etiquette. You can sit back, relax, and enjoy the in-flight entertainment with incredible titles to choose from, such as The Emoji Movie, Valerian and the City of a Thousand Disappointments, Ace Detective Sherlock Bones. And I think we can all agree, of those 3 movies, the most compelling would have to be Sherlock Bones, Ace Detective. Especially with that brilliant tagline, the world's first talking police dog on a mission impossible. Mission impossible. It doesn't really work, does it? At all.
Don't eat and drink while walking. Kind of true, I think. Depends on what you're eating.
So walking down the street whilst eating and drinking isn't illegal. You're not going to get shouted at and you're not going to get arrested by Ace Detective Sherlock Bones. But what you will get is the stare of disapproval. A lot of people don't know this one until you get here and never see anyone doing it. What you'll find is if someone wants to eat or drink something quickly outside, they'll buy it at the convenience store and then eat it or drink it out the front. Same with vending machines. If they buy something from the vending machine, they'll drink it there and then next to the vending machine. The main reason is
it's actually not so true. Like, if I buy something by a vending machine, I will just go and walk and drink when I'm still walking. I think it's really fine. People are not gonna stare at you. Sorry, but this one is a little bit wrong or maybe exaggerated. If you're walking and eating a hamburger or eating a rice bowl that you took away somewhere, that's gonna be weird.
is people are very conscious about keeping the streets clean here, and you don't want to ruin someone else's day by having them walk through your spilt coffee. That said, all you need to do to avoid the stare of disapproval is just stop and eat and drink whatever it is there and then. Maybe it's on a bench, maybe you're just standing at the side of the road, whatever. Just don't walk whilst eating and drinking and you'll be alright.
But yeah, that's right. It's better to sit and stand still and eat and drink. It's more polite, or let's say mannered, I think.
Three things to point out here. Number 1, never put your chopsticks upright into the rice, as this is part of a ritual conducted at funerals when offering rice to the spirits of the deceased. Similarly, number 2, never pass things from chopstick to chopstick, because again, this is done during funerals to pass the bones of cremated relatives, so that kind of imagery doesn't go down well over dinner, as you'd expect. Probably best.
Yeah, these are things I always did when I was small. Like, my mom's always telling me to not do it, and I didn't really get why, because I was small and I don't know really about funeral stuff, so yeah, I had no clue why I'm being wrong.
Not to conjure up imagery surrounding death before you've even had your lunch. Oh, and thirdly, don't do the rubbing of the chopsticks. You know when you open wooden chopsticks, you like to do that to get rid of the splinters, and just because it's fun. Everyone loves doing that, right? But don't do it in Japan because it's seen as rude to the owner, because you're basically saying, oh, your chopsticks are probably cheap, which, let's face it, they probably are. But in fact, they usually definitely are.
Don't know this one. I've never done it. I think probably I'll do it if I'm so hungry and in front of me there's a really nice food. I would probably be doing like, oh, I'm so excited, I'm so hungry, maybe something like that.
Probably the greatest thing about Japan ever, and the reason that I eat out several times a week, just because I save 20% automatically. In Japan, it's believed that customer service should always be exceptional, with staff giving 120% every time. 120%? 110%, 120% would be ridiculous. But it's not necessarily rude to tip someone, it just creates this awkward situation where the worker, the staff would feel like you're assessing their performance and they could potentially lose face. So you might think you're being nice by giving someone a tip, but you're not. You're just creating an uncomfortable situation for the worker and they'll probably just reject your tip outright. So don't be tempted to do it.
It's right, we don't have tip culture in Japan, but I think it could be nice. For example, if I'm ever in Japan again and I go to a restaurant and I get great service, maybe I wanna tip sometime. I'm not gonna tip for a restaurant. I think I'm gonna tip for my server, waiter or waitress. I think I'm just gonna give tip into their hand, and I say don't give it to anyone or like restaurant. Just keep it yourself. Otherwise they have no clue what to do with it. Probably they will give it to cashier or their boss, and they don't even know what to do. So if you ever wanna tip because you had great service, just give it to a waiter or waitress who served you. I think that's the best idea.
There's a real emphasis on being mindful when you're using public transport in Japan that's often completely absent in many countries. Numerous of the times that I've been riding a train in the UK and someone nearby has been screaming at their partner down the phone, and I felt like I was part of the argument, like some kind of unpleasant 4D experience. But given Japan's density, it's especially important to be mindful when you're stuffed in a train alongside fellow commuters, many of whom are sleeping as well. With that in mind, don't ever talk on your phone on the train. That's a massive no thing to do here, and even talking loudly is looked down upon. If you're on a local train or a subway train and you get a phone call, just ignore it until you get off. And if you're on a bullet train, you can go to the little compartment in between the carriages and take your call there.
It's fine, maybe it's emergency. I think it's fine to take your phone, take your call, as long as you're really quiet, as long as you don't bother anyone. Like here in the Netherlands, people talk really, really loudly. Like I can hear what they're arguing about, and I feel awkward. I'm not awkward if I'm hearing what you're saying. That's why I'm really, really quiet when I'm talking on my phone in public. I'm always trying to be quiet, even though if I'm just talking to someone, not on my phone. In person, if I'm talking to someone, I think I tend to be quiet. I feel awkward if somebody else could hear what I'm saying. So that's one thing I don't really understand about foreigners. Or maybe because Japanese people, we think too much. Maybe nobody's listening to you.
I remember for the first few years that I lived here, whenever someone handed me a business card, I was utterly terrified, because until then, business cards to me had always just been a bit of paper or a bit of card with some writing on. But in Japan, they are so much more. Once you've exchanged business cards, the trick is to imagine you've just been handed the lost treasure of El Salvador or something. First, study it meticulously, the name, the job position, the details, and then either put it in your business card holder or just put it on the desk if you're at a business meeting. Just put it on the table. Never play around with business cards or put them in your back pocket, because they're seen as a physical extension of the person themselves, and you don't want to stuff somebody's physical extension down your back pocket. If you're doing business in Japan, always carry business cards. You don't want to be that awkward foreigner who stood there writing out their name and number 50 times in 1 hour on the back of a tissue. And for the record, I am usually that awkward foreigner scribbling down my details because I do forget to bring them, and subsequently I hate myself when it happens.
I really hate this culture. Regarding business card, it's not only about this, but also we have a culture that your business card has to be lower than his or hers. If you're giving your business card like this, it should be lower than his or hers. So you're gonna be like, lowering your card to underneath the others like this, which really doesn't make sense. Like, who cares? We really should get rid of this culture. It's really bullshit for me.
If you've got a runny nose, standard procedure here is just to keep sniffing, or just to find a toilet or a broom cupboard to hide in. Blowing noses in public is pretty rude. Interestingly though,
it's rather disgusting. Nobody wants to hear blowing nose sound. Like, once I heard it's more rude to sniff your nose than blow your nose in public. I think it's more rude to blow your nose. I mean, it makes more disgusting sound. Just because of it, I don't like it.
handkerchiefs are pretty popular here. Not in the way you would think though. People use them to wipe sweat off in the hot summer weather, or even more commonly to dry their hands in public toilets. Because surprisingly, many public toilets in Japan don't have any hand drying facilities, despite having space-age toilets that reside in the same room. It's quite a weird contrast that I don't quite understand.
I don't know, I think I've seen quite a lot of hand dryer in public toilets in Japan. Probably back in time when he made this video, it wasn't that common maybe. Don't worry if you ever go to Japan. There are many hand dryers in Japan.
Physical contact in Japan isn't really a thing. You'll bow a lot,
That's
you'll
right.
nod enthusiastically daily, but occasionally you might shake hands with someone if they're a good friend or a business client that you get on well with, but generally I avoid it unless someone makes the first move. And hugging in particular.
Oh yeah, that's right. Like, we don't even shake our hands when we meet someone, when we meet friends.
It doesn't go down well. It's just met
No,
with
we are just
expressions
gonna bow like this.
of awkwardness and despair. And also amongst couples, public displays of affection are phenomenally rare here, so don't be surprised if you get the stare of disapproval if you're kissing your partner frantically in the street. And I think that it should definitely...
I like it. Like, I'm here in the Netherlands and people like to hug. And actually I like hugging. It kind of breaks the ice.
should definitely be this. If you're the sort of person who feels the need to have a debate or an argument about things or throw your opinions out there constantly, people will find you obnoxious and dislikable and probably just avoid you. Embedded heavily within the culture is this idea of keeping harmony and
Yeah,
avoid...
like, don't be too direct, I guess. Don't to be too straightforward.
conflict at all costs, and it's a lot easier to do that when people aren't at each other's throats throwing around opinions. Sometimes it can be frustrating when people are just unwilling to speak their minds or give you a clear yes or no answer. I mean, one time one of my colleagues when I was teaching, I asked him, do you have any pets? And he said to me, maybe my cat is dead. Maybe your cat is dead. What does that mean? It is dead or is it not dead? It's not Schrodinger's cat, is it? It turned out the cat was definitely dead, but he was just the sort of person that always liked to use the word maybe and just not express certainty.
Oh yeah, like, Japanese people really use maybe a lot of times, I think. You know, we don't want to be direct. I think, you know, we like to say things indirectly, like in a soft way, so that the other person doesn't feel offended or denied.
But if there's one reason I've never seen a fight anywhere in Japan in the last 5 years, it's probably this reason. That people are a lot more careful about expressing their opinions and holding back what they really think. Yeah, I couldn't be bothered to film that one. Everyone seems to know this one already anyway. When visiting someone's house or entering a public building like a school or going to a hot spring, you take off your shoes and switch to slippers before you go in. The easiest way of knowing if you have to change your shoes is there'll be a change in elevation in the floor. So when you go in, there'll be a little stair, and that's when you know. This is the one thing on the list where failing to stick to the rules will have noticeable results. A few years ago, a friend and I visited a public bathhouse.
Why don't you just take off your shoes in the entrance? You know, it keeps your floor cleaner and less dusty, right? Why would you wear your shoes on in your house? Your floor is gonna get dirty and dusty very quickly, I think. Yeah, this is one thing I don't really understand about foreign culture.
House in Kyoto, and we went in, and you're supposed to take your shoes off. For some reason he didn't. I don't know why. I don't think he noticed or saw. There was a little old woman sitting behind the entrance counter where you kind of pay, and when we walked in, she saw that he still had his shoes on, and she shot up with terrifying energy and ran over and grabbed him and took him to the front and was like, "Get your shoes off, get your shoes off." And that image has stayed burnt into my mind. This quiet little old woman suddenly becoming so alive and animated by this terrible event. And ever since then, I've never forgotten to take my shoes off when entering a building. For whatever reason, rubbish bins and trash cans are disturbingly rare in Japan. Outside of convenience stores, it can be a nightmare to find one. And
yeah, that's right. I don't know why. We don't have much bins outside on the street in Japan. Still, streets are really clean though.
The reason I put this on the list is because so many people, so many of you guys message me on Twitter saying, "I'm in Tokyo and I can't find a bin, what should I do?" I've wandered through Tokyo for up to 20 minutes sometimes just in search of a bin and can't find one. The streets though, despite that, are shockingly clean here because people, if they can't find a bin, they just take the rubbish home with them. It can feel like some kind of mini game sometimes, going in search of a bin, because when you do find a bin you feel a real sense of achievement. But despite that, don't be tempted to litter, just keep trying and you'll find a bin one day.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I'm kind of surprised that there are so many bins on the street here in the Netherlands, or let's say in Europe. You know, it's really easy to find it. It's really nice, I like it. But it's dirtier than in Japan.
Seems like a fairly obvious addition to the list, and yet in the UK we just cross the street whenever the hell we want, whenever there's an opening in traffic.
I think Dutch people do the same. I mean, the same as what he said about UK. I think it's everywhere. But yeah, that's right. Japanese people don't really cross, even though there are no cars coming.
Opposed to waiting for the green light, same as many countries. In Japan, however, people do not cross the road on a red light. It's incredibly rare, and it's one of the greatest ways of seeing this sense of order and obedience to the law that exists in Japan. If you stand at a roadside in Japan and there's no cars coming, you can't see any cars whatsoever, people still will not cross the road until it goes green. Over the years of the many friends I've had come to visit me here, this is the thing that shocks them the most. The idea of not crossing the street when there's no visible cars there. The idea of abiding by a rule that doesn't seem necessary. And yet for me personally, the main reason I abide by it is after a few years of being here, you don't want to stand out. You don't want to be this stereotypical rule-breaking foreigner. And as well as that, you don't want to run the risk of getting caught out by the police. So those are two things worth taking into consideration before you dash across the seemingly empty road. And the last one, don't worry about...
I think it's actually nice. Seemingly there are no cars coming. You never know what's happening. You never know when a car is coming really fast. Still, it's better to just stop even though there are no cars.
About not knowing anything about Japanese etiquette when you come to Japan. As I said earlier in this video, there aren't going to be any real consequences to not following any of these things, apart from maybe the footwear one. That's quite scary. You don't want to get dragged off by an old woman. The reason I say don't worry too much is because I find a lot of people come here and they're very nervous and very anxious about following the etiquette they don't really comprehend. And that includes even me. When I came here, I didn't know anything. And I was constantly anxious and nervous that I was making mistakes. But really, as a foreigner in Japan, you get kind of a a free pass to make mistakes. People are understanding and they're kind and they will let you off. So don't become too nervous about following all the rules. Do your best, but don't become a nervous wreck. So those
right. You know, we all know you're not from our island. We know you don't know etiquette about us. I think nobody's gonna really care. And mostly, things that could be rude in your country will most likely be rude in Japan as well. I think it's kind of common sense. You just have to do what you think that's right, and which will be right in Japan, I believe.
Those are my 12 things not to do in Japan, but what have I missed out? Let us know in the comments section below. I've probably missed out, don't ever be late, and don't enter a bath or a hot spring without having a shower first. Those are probably the other 2 key ones that I've missed out. And now they're on the list, so this is actually 14 things not to do in Japan, so bonus stuff there. It's Christmas, so you get extra content.
Happy Christmas.
Oh. Well, that was it. For some reason I couldn't film the last part, so I'm now filming it again. And yeah, anyway, it was really interesting. Like Japan is so much different than any other countries on this planet. For example, if I'm going to travel to Belgium, Germany, France, wherever in Europe, I think there won't be many things that I should be worried about that I will be doing and I'll be rude. But when it comes to going to Japan, it's so much different. Culture is much different than in your country. You might do something unconsciously and you might be rude. But overall, I think it's about common sense. You know, if you think that's right to do it in your country, I think that's also fine in Japan. And if you think that's wrong to do it in your country, which also a bit wrong in Japan, in my opinion. Well, thank you again. I hope you enjoyed it a bit. And possibly I'll make another video of reacting to something. So if you liked it even a bit, please subscribe and keep up with it. Well, thank you. Bye bye.